back again. It's Olivia with the Young Black Professional on the couch. So today I'd like to talk to you about how to prepare for a speech or presentation. And this is going to be pivotal in, I'll say, creating content, because if you think about it, a speech or a presentation is really content that you're creating. How do you create something that is engaging, something that is informative, interesting, and that will really stick with people? And how do you do it well? How do you deliver a good message? And hopefully these tips can help you. If so, let me know in the comments. If you have any that I've missed, I'd love to hear those too. So just let me know down below. Whether it's for work, whether it's something personal, or something that's meant to be inspiring, I think the first thing you need to do is get clear on what is your ultimate message. So what is it that you're looking to convey to the audience? Are you looking to uplift them? Are you looking to inform them? Are you looking to light a fire under them, motivate them? Are you looking to get information from them? So first, knowing what your goal is and what the message is you want to convey. So let's say you have a goal of motivating. What is the message that you would like to get across? So an example is, I gave a speech to a youth program to get students more interested in the accounting career track. And my goal was to motivate and inspire them, particularly, see, that's going to be a tip later on, is to enunciate. Particularly, these students were students of color and students from underrepresented communities. The goal of this program is to help provide resources and education and information about the accounting career track to these students. And for those, whether or not they decided to go into accounting, I wanted to give them a sense of inspiration, but also be a little bit realistic about what it's like being a person of color in the business world, particularly in corporate America. I knew that the message I wanted to convey was really just my personal story and how crappy people can be to you at work, but also how you can persevere and overcome that and understand the power that you hold within yourself. So I guess you can say I had two messages. People, corporate America, crappy sometimes, and power, non-imposter syndrome, you got this. I will kind of go back to that particular speech as an example in this, but you can use it for anything that you might have had to give a speech for, or that you may be having an upcoming speech or presentation for. You want to understand, why is it important to them? But more importantly, why is it important to you? It was important to me for that speech to keep it real and let people know that corporate America isn't going to be all rainbows and butterflies, and it's not going to be easy, particularly as, in my case, a young Black woman, is because I feel like I didn't have enough people be honest with me when I was younger and tell me that. And I wish I had known that, because I wish I had the ability to understand those situations so that I could navigate them a little bit better as they happened. That piece was important to me, but also the piece of understanding your power and your knowledge and being confident in that power and knowledge, because let's be real, if you've gone through any type of training program, any type of college or university to gain knowledge in a specific career track, you have paid for and hopefully done the work to get that knowledge, and you shouldn't be ashamed to be smart or to understand things. You should also be humble and know that you don't know everything, obviously, but you should be confident in the knowledge that you have garnered from whatever program or whatever self-learning or self-study you've done. That was why my message was important to me, and I thought it would be important to others. So that's the first key, is defining your message and understanding its importance for your audience as well as you, because you can't have an impassioned speech or speak from the heart if it's not coming from the heart. Let's keep it a buck. My second point is, do you know enough about the topic or whatever the message is that you're trying to give to speak about it? I have 15 minutes in my notes, but I'm going to say for at least 5 or 10 minutes. And I realized as I thought about it, 15 minutes is a long time to talk about something, especially if it's for a work presentation and you only have maybe 3 to 5 minutes. So can you speak about it straight for 5 minutes at least, I'll say. And the importance of this is, do you know enough about the topic? Would you be able to, if there are no questions, keep talking about a topic? Or if there are questions, would you be able to answer the questions about the topic? And I think that this is a little bit more relevant for work presentations. I think in those cases, what you want to be aware of is the purpose of the work, so why you were doing what you were doing. Also, the results of the work, so what outcome did this have on your company's bottom line, on the team, on your customers or clients, understanding why this needed to be done in the first place, and understanding all of the steps you took in order to achieve those outcomes or final results that I mentioned previously. So understanding each of those key components should give you enough understanding of your topic and provide you enough to talk about for at least 3 minutes of time. If it's something technical, which is specific to your field, so in my case, for example, it would be a tax question, or if it is something that relates to your field, which might be engineering, or another field, which might be chemistry, science, sciences, biology, do you know enough to break it down? So the best way I know how to understand if I know a topic is if I am able to describe it to a child. You know, children around the 3 to 6 or 7 age group tend to ask why a lot. And I know it can be annoying, but it's actually extremely helpful, because you may think you know something, but until you've been questioned by a child why 50 million times, I don't think you really know it. Or unless you have the answers to why 50 million times, you may not really know it. So if you can break something down to a child or a non-expert, if you are an expert or on your way to expertise, if you can break it down to someone who is not an expert or someone who doesn't have the same vernacular or technical vocabulary you do, then I guarantee you can have a very successful presentation and speech, because people need to be able to relate. So if you're in a room full of non-experts trying to speak technically on, let's say, on a project you've been working on, and you're using all of these terms, all of these acronyms, and it's just kind of going over people's heads, which you can usually see in their face by looking at them, it's going to fall flat. So make sure you're able to break things down and understand what it is that you need to present, particularly if it's a work presentation, at an elementary level. And that is important because sometimes people will have questions and they just won't ask. And I've seen it. I've been there. I've been the person that has had questions and just didn't ask in presentations or meetings. And I regretted it. I mean, I did find answers eventually, but it could have been much quicker if I were the person who had just asked the question. Because the chances are, if you have the question and you're in a room full of other non-experts or people who are just as unsure as you are, somebody else has the question too. So making sure that you can break it down at a more elementary level is also helpful because it can stretch out your time a little bit more. So if you have a goal to speak for 10 minutes and 10 minutes is seemingly impossible for you to get to, let's say you can only get to 8 or 9, what can be an easy way to stretch out your speech a little bit more, your presentation a little bit more, is giving a little bit more attention to things that are very high level or technical and breaking them down a little bit more, and maybe even giving definitions at the beginning of your speech or within your speech as you use certain terms. And that way you can kind of help people along the way to understand how everything works. So that's a major key right there to stretching out presentations or speeches, and that is breaking things down a little bit more in order to explain things more to the audience, but also to give you a little bit more meat. In my case, for my speech, that was me giving concrete examples of how I had experienced, in my case again, microaggressions in the workplace and how they affected me, and not only how they affected me, but how I could see why certain people would say microaggressive, is that the term I'm looking for? Would say microaggressive things instead of being directly racist or instead of being honest, kind of being more shady. If breaking things down doesn't work for you, I find giving examples works well, or giving analogies. So, as I said, stretching out your speech or presentation to add more nutrients into it, as if your presentation were a meal. That's an analogy. You can use analogies for people to be able to relate certain terms or characteristics within your speech together. And people tend to pay a little bit more attention if you start bringing in food, for example. If you're presenting on numbers and you relate the way that certain key balance sheet items, for example, relate to parts of a sandwich, people pay attention. Like, wait, did they just say sandwich? So it kind of perks people up a little bit and makes them pay a little bit more attention, especially when you use analogies that don't at all relate to whatever it is you're talking about. I guarantee you that'll bring some people back if they've gone into the sunken place or just completely unaware of what you're talking about or seem like they don't care. If you don't know enough about your topic or whatever it is that you're presenting on, let me just tell you, do some research. It's really not that difficult, especially in these days, the days of Google. And if not, go on YouTube, see some other people talking about similar topics. I guarantee you that is chef's kiss. The best way that you can start learning about people in similar fields if you want to get into presenting more or giving more speeches and understanding what makes a successful speech or presentation and what kind of loses people along the way. And you can gauge that by things that you might be interested in or presentations that you pay more attention to or actually watch full presentations. I have 2 final tips. The third one, so just a quick recap in case I lost you. The first one is, what is your message and why is it important to your audience and you? The second is, do you know enough about your topic to talk about it for 5 minutes straight? Now, the third one is to write out your thoughts and edit them. I find for me personally, doing an outline is helpful. It's helpful for me because I personally like to talk off the cuff a little bit more, but it helps keep me on track. It helps me not get off on tangents. And it also helps me frame my thoughts in a way that is cohesive and in a way that doesn't look like the inside of my brain, which looks like this. It is the best way for me because it also helps me once I do get to speaking so that I'm not trying to read off of a script and do it verbatim, because I find that that puts a little bit more pressure on me, especially when I know I can speak and present well. I think just having a piece of paper there and being so rigid and so tied to whatever it is that I wrote out, that's my dog, whatever it is that I wrote out, it just makes me nervous. It makes me anxious. What you want to do is spend more time planning and writing your thoughts out, because the more you get your thoughts out, the clearer and more concise your speech or presentation can be, because it'll help you get clear and cohesive, and it'll make for a much better speech when you can figure out what your driving points are, what the points you want to drive home are, particularly if you're dealing with coworkers or managers, directors, partners, whoever it is, owners that you are working with or want to impress or want to make an impression on. Could even be students, like in my speech. And when you really focus on those key points, so think back to the message that you want to convey and why it's important. Those are good ways to figure out what the key points are and making an outline around those key points so that you have a very interesting, intriguing, and informative speech. And the last point, number 4, is to practice speaking and constantly edit your speech. If you're not the type of person to be able to be confident and feel good about speaking in front of people, if you get anxious or stage fright or anxiety around speaking in front of crowds or even small groups, I suggest you practice speaking. If you have friends or family that can listen to you, have them listen to you. If you're comfortable recording yourself, or even if you're not, I challenge you to kind of push the envelope a little bit. Or if you would like to understand where you trip up and what your trigger points may be, that way you can understand what you need to do better, where you can improve, or where your speech just falls flat. It's also a good way, if you record yourself or have people who will be honest with you about your speech and the way that you speak, to figure out how to enunciate properly, what words you tend to gloss over, or if you tend to speak a little too fast. I know I personally speak a lot too fast if I get too impassioned about what I'm talking about. The good thing about YouTube videos is I can edit them. I can slow them down, or you can slow them down in the playback, or speed them up if I talk too slow for you. So with that, I hope that these tips are super helpful for you in your next speech or presentation. If so, let me know in the comments. If not, let me know in the comments. And until the next one, I hope you have a great one. I'm out. Peace.